Hi, welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith. In this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game, Farmageddon, designed by Grant Rodiak and published by Hyperbole Games. Gone are the days of growing simple carrots and potatoes. Now people want the latest produce that science has to offer, so you'll need to grow a variety of colorful crop characters in order to out-harvest your fellow farmers. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. Separate by their backs and shuffle into 2 face-down piles the crop and farmer cards. In a 2-player game, as we're setting up, also randomly remove 20 cards from the crop deck and put out this reference card for the players to use as needed. Now deal 3 crop and 4 farmer cards to each player and designate the one who most recently ate corn as the first player. And that's the setup. In Farmageddon, players will be planting and fertilizing their crops, all the while trying to protect them from the other players so they can harvest and sell them to make the most money by the end of the game. Starting with the first player and then going clockwise around the table, the game is played over a series of turns until it ends. And on your turn, you're going to perform 3 steps, and the first one is to draw 2 crop cards. To perform this step, you simply draw 2 cards from this deck and add them to your hand. I also want to point out the reference card here explains all the steps that you take during a turn, so we'll just set it aside for this video since you have me to help you. Now it's the take action step. You can take any number of crop actions and up to 2 farmer actions, but all of these can be taken in any order that you want. Let's start by learning the crop actions. One option is to plant. Simply choose 1 crop card from your hand and place it face up in front of yourself. Some are known as Franken crops, and they'll have a special effect printed here, which you must resolve when it's planted. If you cannot fully resolve its effect, then you can't plant that crop. In this case, it says I draw 1 crop card when I plant bodacious broccoli, so I'll do that now. Aside from their special abilities, you can also distinguish Franken crops because they'll show this symbol here, while normal ones look like this. The other crop action is to fertilize. To do this, choose a crop card from your hand and place it face down on any plant. It can even be an opponent's, as some will provide bonuses for this. Each planted card has a fertilizer requirement that you must fulfill before you can harvest it for points later. This is shown as the value here. So to fully fertilize the bodacious broccoli, I'll need to fertilize it 3 times. Remember, you can take any number of crop actions, so maybe on my turn I'll also fertilize it 2 more times for the total of 3. Once a crop is at its maximum amount, you cannot play further fertilizer onto it. Also note, some cards are played face up when they fertilize, which will be indicated on their text here. In the case of the mirror bean, it says if it's used to fertilize, place it face up and rotate it 180 degrees. Then the crop that it's fertilizing is protected. We'll learn what that term means along with a few others a little bit later. Along with any number of crop actions, a player can play up to 2 farmer cards from their hand for their printed effects. Each one is then discarded to a shared farmer discard pile unless the effect states otherwise. The genetic superworm, for example, is actually placed on any planted crop and will resolve its effect there. There's also a shared crop discard pile, so use that when an effect would cause you to discard crops. Also keep in mind, if a farmer effect can't be fully resolved, then you cannot play it. After taking all your chosen actions, you must fertilize at least once on your turn, if able, if you haven't already. Even if that means you have to fertilize another player's crop. The key here is you only have to fertilize if able. For example, on a future turn, if I only had these 2 crop cards in hand, I could plant both of them with my actions, and because I don't have another crop card to fertilize with, I don't have to. I'm not required, for example, to have used one of these as fertilizer. But if I had kept this one in my hand, then yes, I have the option to fertilize and I'd have to. After taking your actions, you resolve the turn end step by first drawing a single farmer card. Then you harvest all fully fertilized crops in front of you that were not planted that turn. This timing is important, so to be clear, if you planted a crop this turn, it can't be harvested. But if you stole an opponent's crop, you could harvest that as it was not planted on your turn. We'll learn more about stealing crops a little bit later. When a crop is harvested, place it in a score pile that you'll keep beside you. It'll be worth a number of points as shown here in the upper left-hand corner at the end of the game. Your score pile is considered private, but you can look at your own anytime you want. Then all fertilizer and farmer cards that might have been on that crop are placed in their respective discard piles unless the cards say otherwise. At the very end of your turn, check your hand. You can have any number of farmer cards, but no more than 6 crops. If you have more, choose enough to discard, bringing you down to that limit. And that's a player's turn. Now the next person in clockwise order would take a turn, and so on. But before moving on, let's go over some terms that you might encounter on the card effects. If you're told to clear a crop, you discard it, and all fertilizer and farmer cards that may be on it, unless the effect dictates otherwise. For example, this thresher says that the player who controlled the crop gets to take any fertilizer on it back into their hand. If you're told to score a card, then you add it to your score pile. The pesticides are something you'll want to add to an opponent's crop because instead of discarding it when they harvest the crop, they'll have to score it, and this will be worth -5 points at the end of the game. If an effect protects a crop, then all cards placed on it before the protection happened are still active. But then the crop is immune to all future effects, positive or negative, that would normally apply to it. Protection guards against effects, but you can still fertilize that crop. If an effect lets you steal a crop, you take full ownership of it, placing it and any other cards on it in front of you. If you're instructed to give a crop, you place it in front of another opponent, and now they're forced to own it. Now let's get back to the gameplay. Players will continue taking turns until the last crop is drawn. The player who did this finishes their turn, and then all other players get one final turn, but can no longer draw crop cards, because of course there aren't any. But this does mean they can play cards that would normally require them to as part of their effect. They'll just ignore that portion. Once all players have had their final turn, all fully fertilized crops are then harvested, and players can reveal their score piles and total up all the points shown here in the upper left-hand corner. Some effects in the score pile may also generate points, so keep an eye out for that. The player with the most points wins. If there's a tie, the tied player who has the most crop cards in their score pile wins. And if there's still a tie, then play again. And that's everything you need to know to play Farmageddon. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. But until the next episode, thanks for watching.